I read this book, utterly fascinating. Generations by Gene M. Twengy. This
Yeah,
was
you
the
sent it
book
to me
for our
yesterday
book
in a
club.
text. Yeah.
Talks about the five generations living together now. You have the silence, which
Mhm.
my mom's passed away. She was a silent. My dad's a silent, 1942. The last year of silence is 1944.
Okay.
So the boomers started in 45. I didn't realize this, but Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump, all born in 1945.
Interesting.
Joe Biden, born in 1942. He's a silent. He's the only silent president we've ever
Oh.
had.
Ooh.
Because prior to that was
Was
George Bush
Reagan.
Sr. The
Right.
greatest, exactly. They don't talk about the greatest in this one. So you have the silent generation, the boomers. Obama was more of a late boomer. Some people say he had more elements of Generation X, just given how he lived, his lifestyle, living
Right.
overseas, more multicultural. And then
Yeah.
you have generation after the boomers, Generation X, and then you have millennials, then Generation Y, who are the kids I'm teaching, who, wow, like just learning about them, and then I, your son might actually be considered still Generation Y because I think no, maybe not. The first year of um of the Polars is 2012, I believe. Let me look.
2013 was when he was born.
Yes, the Polars is 2013 to 2029 projected. They still haven't figured out the polars, but you know why they call them polars?
Why?
One is the melting of the polar ice caps, and
Oh, okay.
two is how polarized the world is now.
Wow.
I know that's nuts, right?
That second part hits different too, especially the second part.
That chapter was the shortest chapter. We're talking about Generation Y.
Well,
Like
that's
all
that's information, of course.
these kids all grew up with iPads. Like 1995 was like the demarcation year where internet was in the majority of American households,
Right.
and 2007 was when the first iPhone came out. By 2011, over half of all Americans had an iPhone or some kind of smartphone. That's like
Wow.
nuts.
Yeah.
That
That
and
is
you know
nuts.
who it impacts the most is probably will not surprise you is young
Well,
girls
right.
just trying to keep up. Oh my
Right.
God,
Of
who's the
course.
Instagram model? This and that. Like they didn't talk about it in the book, but I remember this. I thought it was interesting. How I do want to ask you about TikTok. What you know about it? Because I'm very.
But I know. Look, I
Do you
don't
do
use much of the
TikTok?
thing. So I have an account. I do have clips of my shows on that account, but I don't ever update it hardly. I wanted to make it a part of the show of the promotion of the show, but I don't stay on top of it. I'm more a YouTube guy, honestly. I'm a YouTube guy.
I think YouTube's great too, but
Yeah.
TikTok was banned in Montana. So anyway, to go back, so you have Generation Y, who is like this new generation of young people. They actually have a lot of angst, a lot of anxiety. Good reason to. The millennials population growth is really falling off millennials, and it's even falling off more with Gen Y. It's like people
Hmm.
don't want kids, and but the Gen Y are more activist minded, not because they have faith, but because they're so pessimistic about the world that they demand change. Um, so Generation X, what's interesting about me and you is that they actually said you could almost put us in a subgroup from if you're born between 1979 and 83, you're an
Okay.
exennial. You're like a hybrid between a Gen X and millennial. And that's kind of how I feel, to
I
be
feel
honest with
special.
you.
I feel
Yeah.
special now when you say that.
Yeah. No, it's true though, because think about it. Because what they say is millennials are people that were born almost with excessive self-esteem. They were made to feel great. Like they want affirmation because they feel like they deserve it. Generation Y, the young kids now a little bit older than our children, they need affirmation for reassurance. Like Gen X, my experience was, even though my parents raised me with self-esteem, if I did something wrong, they made me feel like shit. You know what I mean?
Oh God, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So exactly, you know exactly what I'm saying. They didn't make you to feel like you were God's gift to the world, did they?
Did you finish that book already?
I did.
I think I want to read that book now, man.
I mean, you could even skip around with the chapters, but it's fascinating. You could look her up too. She did an interview with Jordan Peterson. I didn't read that one. I didn't even know about her. My friend recommended this book. And I'm like, I asked him then, I'm like, how'd you come up with it? He's like, I'm not such an avid reader. I just saw it and I was just curious. I wanted to learn about it. But like, it kind of blew me away. And it just talks about like things about like how to navigate. Like Generation X is almost the skipped over generation.
Yeah.
So like, because there's fewer Generation X in Congress than anybody else. Like millennials are the new supervisors and they're navigating how to hire new Gen Y employees because every subsequent generation has become more and more individualistic. Like you, sir, being a married man with 2 kids is becoming like a statistical rarity. Fewer and fewer people are married.
Yeah,
Fewer people have kids.
I mean, look at the divorce rate. Of
There's
course,
still people that have kids but aren't married. Like I have kids,
right.
I'm not
And
married.
look at the
Would you,
divorce
like,
rate.
for
That's on that
example?
too, also.
Yeah, I mean that kind of stabilized over time. The world is just like in a funny place. It's in flux. But in 1995, we got injected with more technology than human beings ever had.
We
Like,
did, but I feel like the last 10 to 15 years, the advancement of the technology feels so much like rapid.
yeah, look at it. We're talking on video now. The first time we did a podcast together, we were just talking on a phone.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy how things change. Like